Punky's Pro Wrestling. I'm your host, Angelina Wilson. If you didn't come from one of my other channels, you might not know that the reason it's called Punky's Pro Wrestling is because my nickname from my daddy was Punky, and my daddy introduced me to wrestling. So, towards the end of his life, we would cuddle up on the couch together under a blanket and watch wrestling. We hadn't done it in a while, and he wanted me to watch wrestling with him. So we would cuddle up under a blanket on the couch, and I would get him caught up. And the last time we went to wrestling, my girlfriend Kelly got tickets that a friend of hers won from a radio contest. And he said to her, I'm not going to be able to use these. Do you happen to know someone who would use these? And she said, oh yeah. And she came to the house. She handed them to me. She didn't tell me what she had for me. She just told me on the phone she was coming over, and she had a surprise for me. So I sat out on the porch, waited for her. She came over. She handed the tickets to me. Not only was it SmackDown, but it was the draft in 2016. I was just like, holy guacamole. And I went inside. It was only 2 tickets. I went inside, and at first my mother was kind of upset. Not that my mother was a wrestling fan, and she couldn't have gotten up those stairs anyway. I could barely get up those stairs to where the seats were. But she eventually relented and said, you two go. Because Kelly told Dad, look, I'll drive you guys. I'll pick you up. Because nobody wanted him driving in the city at that point. And so that was our last show together. We got to see AJ, but we didn't get to see him wrestle. So, in fact, I was in contact with his wife at that time, and I told her, and she actually wrote back to me. It was really nice. So, anyway, that's the story of this channel. And this channel was a dream of mine from the time I was a kid, recording on audio tapes, pretending I was a radio station, and recording on VHS-C, which is VHS compact VHS, that literally went in an extender to become a VHS. I recommend the battery-operated ones and not the manual ones. I never used the manual one. Battery-operated one was all metal, and when you put it in, close the door, it automatically stretched the tape. You didn't have to sit there and do this. So, and I used to make wrestling videos on there. So, to have this platform is awesome. Now to the news. Now that I've spent 3 minutes on that. Scott D'Amore, who was running TNA and was abruptly fired for no apparent reason, is reopening Maple Leaf Wrestling in Canada. He is Canadian. Which is wonderful. The Von Erichs, Kevin's sons, Marshall and Ross, along with Dustin Rhodes, are the AEW Trios champions. They had a wonderful interview after they won the titles, like a promo. And the 2 big Texas dynasties in wrestling coming together, and it's pretty cool. Tony Khan had a meeting with Shane McMahon, but he is not giving up any information about what that meeting was about. He said he really liked Shane. Shane was impressed with his knowledge of wrestling, which, from what I understand, he's always been a huge fan and does have a good knowledge base. He wasn't somebody who was clueless who just decided to open a wrestling promotion. He actually knew stuff, which I knew. but he's not saying what they met about or if Shane's going to be coming into the company or any of that. He's keeping it all close to the vest, which is probably wise at this point. I think Shane doesn't want anything to do with his father's issues. Shane's oldest son, Declan, by the way, is playing college football right now. So, that's pretty cool. Can't remember who he's playing for. But it's just a little add-on to that news clip. Mark Henry's son, Jacob, has just joined the WWE in training at the Performance Center. That's really all I know. He's not like going to be in NXT or anything right now. He's training. Okay, Judgment Day has changed completely. They've kicked out Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest and added Liv Morgan. Now I don't know. I know it's Liv, Dom, Finn. I don't know if it's JD McDonough. And it looks like there's someone else. But yeah. And Gunther is the new champion after SummerSlam. They're having a premium live event from Berlin, capital city of Germany. And that's why they needed to get the belt on him before that. Because they wanted him to be champion coming home to Germany, which makes sense. And he will defend it against Randy Orton in Berlin. It's called Bash in Berlin. Now, in the last video, I told you that another wrestler had passed away. Kevin Sullivan passed away. He was 74 years old. He was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts, October 26, 1949, which means he would have been 75 at the end of the year. He was only 5'9", but he was a well-built 250 pounds when he wrestled. He leaves his third wife, Linda, grown children, first from his first wife, Shannon and Ben, and with Linda, he also had 2 children, Nicole and Bianca. They have not released the actual cause of death. We do know he had some sort of catastrophic accident at an autograph signing in Florida. He lived in the Keys with his wife. They ran a gym for a while. His daughter, did a GoFundMe to try to deal with his medical expenses because, fortunately, these guys don't get much insurance, if any at all. They pay for it. And unfortunately, his insurance was maxed out, which tells me his insurance was mostly Medicaid. Unfortunately, well, people's insurance maxes out, which is absurd. Because you're only allowed so much time in a hospital in one stay. Over 30 days in a stay and you're done. You're only allowed 21 days in a nursing home for recovery. In rehab. So it's like, okay, you're ridiculous. And they need to consider, more than consider, they need to fix that system. Because it's not helping our elderly. Not only that, our elderly can't get an eye exam because a lot of them don't have the $50 copay that it requires because their insurance doesn't pay, and I know this from my own experience, their insurance does not pay for the actual glasses determining part, where they take the thing, put it in front of your eyes, and better, worse, and they move lenses around. you might not be familiar if you've never had an eye exam. Trust me, I've had them since I was 2. Um, they don't pay for that part. It's $50. So what exactly do they pay for? Anyway, they pay very little in terms of dental. They don't pay for half of the immunizations that the elderly require. They don't pay for a lot of stuff that the elderly require, such as I personally think they should be paying for incontinence supplies. That's just my opinion. But that's why the GoFundMe, because the insurance ran out, which it does. Because a lot of people were probably like, wait a minute, this man's got to have money. Yeah, to some degree, he's got retirement. But you're going to spend your entire retirement on medical bills and have nothing to show for your life's work? So, yeah. Not good. Excuse me. So, anyway. They did do the GoFundMe. It was successful. They were able to raise some money to help him. Fortunately, and this is probably the case with him as well, after my father passed away, his medical bills were written off because we didn't know them. They weren't in our name. So, and we got a bunch, but they were written off because he died. And that's what will happen. His wife won't have to pay all those medical bills. I'm sure she'd rather have him here, but excuse me, stuff happens. Unfortunately. He was a brilliant mind as a booker, as a wrestler. In one article, they were talking about him being a rival of Hulk Hogan's in the 90s. Not really. Did they have a confrontation or two? Maybe. But to be a big rival? No. No, no, no. No, 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 no. He was the boss, one of the bosses by the time Hogan came to WCW, so. And he did his infamous Mr. Booker Man thing with Brian Pillman when Pillman quit. It's called a worked shoot, which means it is a work, but it appears to be a shoot. In other words, it appears to be real. Because he called him Mr. Booker Man, because he was the booker. That whole thing shocked the wrestling world to its core. It was amazing. Then, of course, he inadvertently wrote his own divorce from woman, and so there's that. But anyway. And there must have been something about him I mean, aside from his intelligence, I believe he has a business degree from Boston College. Uh, that a judge saw because he had custody of his two oldest children after his divorce, which was unheard of for a father to have custody, not to mention one that traveled like he did. So, anyway, I guess the whole thing with Nancy, him, Benoit, kind of put a strain on his relationship with Ben. Hopefully, they mended it. So, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned something about Kevin Sullivan. And all the news that is news. I'm not Sean's View Entertainment. I won't be doing news every hour. Probably a couple times a week I'll come on and do something fun. Oh, my fingers. Anyway, so that's the plan. Bye, guys. God bless you.